Hi everybody, I'm Pasha Ersan, and I'm the physical pillar here at Convergence 5, as well for the whole company of Sacred Sons. And I'm here to teach you guys about biomechanics and how it relates to trauma in the body, and how trauma is not stored in your brain, but it's stored in your soft tissue. And a lot of times people try to create a mantra or a mindset or an emotion to help get rid of something that's actually in their physical body. If you're 2 years old and you burn your hand on a stove, that trauma is saved in your hand, so that next time you feel heat, you'll pull away from it. Or maybe you're 6 years old and a Doberman bites you in the stomach. That trauma is saved in your stomach, so that next time a Doberman is by you, you pull away. It's a survival mechanism. Let's say that you're in a car driving and you get a phone call that just said your father died. Boom, that trauma gets stored in the seated position. And sadly enough, in our culture, almost every time we get a traumatic response, it's in a seated position. Whether it's an email from a boss or a phone call from a girlfriend, we're generally in a seated position when the trauma hits us. So we're battling the cell phone, we're battling the car, we're battling the social constructs of our society. I want to show you guys how you can become a sovereign man by addressing your biomechanics, and how the physical body is the vessel for the mental and the emotional. And it's a two-way street between all three of those things. So I want to show you guys a couple movements and a couple drills that you can do to really give yourselves the sovereignty that you need in your body. One of the main things that I see in all men is they lead with their genitals and they close their heart. And this is from the seated position. So when the genitals are in front of the heart, this is actually the posture of someone who's retreating, someone who's falling backwards, someone who's dumping out their sexual energy, and someone who's closing off their heart. What happens a lot in our society is men get an internal rotation in their shoulders and an external rotation in their body, and they walk like this, very masculine. Women are the exact opposite. They go external rotation, internal, and you can see the feminine body language. Men really love to close their hearts and lead with their genitals. Women love to open their hearts but close their genitals off. And this is what's going on in our society. So if we can get a more neutral posture unanimously around the world, then we'll be able to be connected. The one thing that all men and women have in common is their walking pattern. And because of our traumas, those patterns have become random, sort of like a Rubik's Cube. When you mess a Rubik's Cube up, it's random, but there's one formula to fix all Rubik's Cubes. Same with humans. We all have random traumas, but there's one formula to fix all those traumas, and it's walking. Before there was any type of exercise, yoga, breathing drills, or CrossFit, there was walking. You're never going to see any animal doing a stretch for longer than 10 seconds in nature. You're never going to see an animal doing any breathing drills, and you're never going to see a polar bear lifting a log on its back and squatting it. That's because the most important form of movement is going to be locomotion, how you walk and you run and you throw. Specifically for men, how we show up in life is based upon our feet. Our voice might be the most powerful thing, but we tend to abuse that power. If you just stop talking and watch where the feet end up, you'll see who a man truly is. It's called the sole of the foot for a reason, because your feet will take you to where your soul is asking for. So what I mean by that is your feet are going to take you to the ATM to get money to buy drugs if your soul's not doing good. Your feet will take you to the computer to watch porn if your soul's not doing good. Your feet will take you to the fast food restaurant. The mouth will lie, but the feet will always tell the truth. So if you can control your walking mechanics, you can control where your feet end up. And that was huge for me. My addictions were painkillers, and it wasn't until I learned to walk away from them that I was truly able to overcome them. Also, through Sacred Sons, we're learning how to connect biomechanics through functional patterns, which you can find online. They've got a 10-week course and an amazing book, but then also how to pray with the right mechanics and how to incorporate music. So I want to teach you guys how to get music, prayer, and movement to make a more holistic approach to what you're doing. Nothing against yoga, nothing against CrossFit, but those things tend to be limited, and we're the evolution, so to speak, meaning we're like an ancient future. This is ancient information, and we're bringing it through in a futuristic context. Walking has been around since the beginning of time. Walking is what Mother Earth designed you to do. Walking is how you get validation from Mother Earth. If you're doing another form of exercise, you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for validation? Is it social validation? Is it sexual validation? What is the reason for the thing? Do you want to do the splits because you can get more Instagram followers? Do you want to do the back squat because you can belong to that group? Like, what is your motivation for your movement? All right, now I want to show you guys a couple drills that I like to teach guys here at Convergence. The first one is how to rotate your rib cage. Remember, I said that a lot of men lead with their genitals and their heart falls behind. We're going to reverse that using our feet. So I'm going to drive my feet forwards to send my hips backwards. I need to feel the connection from the ground. So hips drifting forwards, ribs coming backwards, you can all get into this position and try in one go to push your hips behind you and your heart in front of you. So that's gonna be our starting position. Once we're there, we wanna make sure that the hips don't move, and you're gonna do that by pinching the ground, trying to squeeze my feet, my knees, and my groin together, and at the same time squeeze my ass, and that's gonna cement my hips in a nice stable position. The next thing I'm gonna do is get my right palm up, left palm down, and I'm gonna start to use my arms to rotate my rib cage. So this is gonna be the sequence: palm up, palm down. And what you're doing is you're hydrating your spine. You're teaching your rib cage to move with your arms, and this is what happens with human motion. If my ribs and my hips move together, you're gonna see a lot of motion in my knees, and that's why a lot of people have knee problems, because their spine is fused. So what I want you guys to practice doing is keeping your hips frozen and then just freeing up that rib cage, getting your heart to be more free. If the heart is closed off physically, it'll be closed off emotionally, because they're one and the same. If your posture is caving in the heart, but your mantra is to open your heart, you can't open your heart until you do it physically. The posture needs to become the mantra, not the mantra itself, if that makes sense. So not so much with the words, but with the body language. So now I got tension in my legs, and I'm gonna go 5 minutes, arms back and forth, rotating my rib cage. And this is gonna hydrate what's called the longitudinal ligament, which runs right down your spine. Once you get this sequence down, then we're gonna teach you guys how to put all the weight on one leg and all the weight on the other. This is the first step in controlling your feet. If your feet don't know how to bear your heart, then you're gonna be a little bit lost. Remember, the heart needs a foundation. The heart's foundation is the leg that's in front. Wherever you're heading in life is where your heart is gonna go. So I've got my right leg forward. I'm gonna go ahead and hinge, and I'm gonna take my heart and rotate it towards this lead leg. From the side profile, it looks like this. I'm gonna take my back heel off the ground, hinge my hips backwards, making sure that your hamstrings aren't keeping your butt tucked, getting length in those hamstrings. You should feel a nice stretch through here. I get my left bicep, right tricep, and I rotate my heart towards my base of support here. And I hold this position for 2 minutes. If you're doing this correctly, you should be burning in your glute, burning in your hamstring right here. Doing that on both sides for 2 to 5 minutes. Once you feel adequate at this position, then I'm gonna teach you guys the walking song. Every man has glutes in the same position, pecs in the same position, obliques in the same position, and that's because we're all supposed to walk almost identically. There should be little personality traits in us, but the sequence should be the same. But because of our traumas in life, most men sound like a baby banging on a piano. Bong, bong, randomness, right? When we should all actually have a sequence. If something is random, you can't build speed, you can't build power. But once you create a sequence, now you can actually create power. So the walking song is gonna go arms first, then rib cage, then the legs. So I really wanna give you guys a drill to help get that in tuned into your tissues. So from the side position, we're gonna go right back into our hinge. We're gonna get our right tricep, left bicep, and the sequence is gonna go arms first, then my rib cage, then my leg. And then exactly the same on the way back down. Arms first, then my rib cage, then my leg comes back down. If you did this correctly, your left arm should be forward, right leg is forward. Go slow, create the sequence. Every man should move their arms first. That should trigger the rib cage, and then the legs come through with the power at the end. And if you do this good enough, you can actually create a nice force coming upwards with the arms. The arms create like an uppercut type of motion, and then the legs finish to create power. Arms are gonna tell you where to go. That's why we move them first. If I wanna head to the left, I point to the left. If I wanna head to the right, point to the right. If I wanna head towards you guys, I point towards you guys. The hands are your connection to the world, and they're the first thing that moves when you walk. So that's number 2. Number 3, to make this all organic, you're gonna stand on your right leg, and you're gonna get your left foot out in front. If your left foot is in front, your right hand is in front. And you're just gonna learn this pattern, how the arms and legs go back and forth together. Humans are called contralateral reciprocators. Do you guys know what contralateral is? Opposite, so right versus left, top versus bottom. Do you guys know what reciprocate is? It's to give back. So opposites giving back to each other. Humans have one of the most complex movement structures on Earth, and there's an overwhelming amount of evidence to show that your brain developed at the exact same time your walking did. So as we evolved to walk better and more efficiently, so did our brain, especially the hippocampus, the emotional center of the brain. So we created this brain with high emotional capacity, and then we started failing in our mechanics. And that's one of the reasons we have anxiety and depression, is because we have such a huge emotional IQ, KQ, EQ, emotional quotient, but then our mechanics aren't there to support that. So once you can dial in your walking, you'll start to connect to your emotions again, and your body can then reciprocate left, right, top, bottom. But if you're frozen and all you know is up and down from squatting or deadlifting, this is like, I don't like my job, I'm gonna just push through it. I'm not happy in my marriage, I'm just gonna push through it. But once you learn how to rotate, you can look for other avenues. I don't like my job, I'm gonna ask for a raise. I don't like my marriage, I'm gonna talk to my wife, as opposed to linear thinking, right? We're contralateral reciprocators. We need to rotate. We need to move our head from side to side. We need to learn how to put weight on one leg, weight on the other leg. Every movement has a thought pattern that goes to it. If I can go down, I understand up. If I can go right, I understand left. If you're someone who's got a fused spine and your movement is fused, so is your thinking. You'll see the kid at class who walks right, right, left, left. They have a little retardation in their brain. The hemispheres aren't connecting. So when you guys learn how to put your right hand forward and your left leg forward, you're starting to connect right and left hemispheres of the brain. And this is going to greatly reduce any anxiety and depression in your body. Simple as just connecting your right hand to your left leg can get rid of that anxious feeling. Biomechanics, I'd say, is the center point to overcoming your depression. Once you learn that the trauma is in your tissues and you need to move better, then you're going to learn how to overcome those traumas. But if you're just sitting there trying to create a mantra in your head, but you're not addressing the physical body, then those things aren't going to go away. You men are a battery, and most of you are a AAA battery, and you should be a Tesla car battery, meaning you're not holding enough electrical charge. Most depression and anxiety is caused by a low redox potential. And what that means is that your battery or your gas levels are low, and your vehicle is telling you that you're about to run out of gas or you don't have enough energy to handle life. Redox potential is your mitochondria and your cells producing ATP. Your cells love oxygen, they love water, and they love electricity. So when you feel depressed or anxiety inside your body, that's just a signal from your body that you don't have energy to do life. The best thing you can do is hydrate your tissues by walking differently, connect to your body and give it more electricity via thought, and then breathe with the right mechanics. And when you put water, electricity, and oxygen into your body, you're gonna hold a greater redox potential. When your body has that redox potential, you won't have the low gas signal on. You won't have that anxiety and depression. They're not usually caused from other things in your life. And when you can't really pinpoint in your brain, you're like, man, where's that anxiety coming from? I can't picture it. Everything else is pretty good. It's your low redox potential. It's not about drinking more water, but holding more water in your tissues. If you have a certain posture that you're stuck in, then you're negating 30 to 40% of your other tissues, and they become dry and rigid, and that lowers your redox potential. If you're a man and your mantra is, I want to be more sovereign, but you don't hold yourself in a sovereign position, it will never happen. That's why the posture has to become the mantra. If you want to be a good lover, you got to move like a lover. If you want to be a king, you got to stand like a king. If you want to be rich, you got to stand like you're rich. That's what the mantra is. So if you're feeling anxiety, depression, or any of those emotional problems, check your redox potential. Look at a soft tissue program. It doesn't have to be functional patterns, but that's the one I'd recommend. Any soft tissue program, any type of movement that's going to change the way you hold yourself. In order of importance when it comes to evolution, it's walking, then running, then throwing. And once you have those three things down, then you get into martial arts or dance. And the reason I say martial arts or dance, because you'll see every mammal has a rough housing practice from birth. Every mammal does not have a yoga practice, does not have a CrossFit practice. It doesn't have any other practice except rough housing and learning how to defend itself. So if you look at all other mammals and if you look at humans, one thing we did is we started creating for the sake of validation outside of nature. Remember that. When we can come back to validating from nature, that's the formula that fixes our Rubik's Cube. So remember, walking towards your problems, walking away from your problems, walking towards your traumas, walking away from them. Running towards victory, running away from victory. And throwing, that's your ability to provide and protect. Every movement has a hormonal response to it. If you don't have the ability to throw, to hunt, to protect, and you don't actually have to go hunting, you don't actually have to protect anything, it's the motion itself, it's the body language of having this position and feeling good with the throw that will exude a hormonal response that makes you feel like you can provide and protect. Stop complicating things too much and come back to where you're at. If you do breathing drills without mechanics, you mess up the gas exchange inside your body. I have nothing against Wim Hof breathing. I've done a lot of it, but what I found is it simulates the breath as if you're sprinting without the mechanics of sprinting, and that confuses the body. If I do a but I don't have the running mechanics to go with it, my brain gets super confused. It's like, yo, are we being chased? Why are we sitting down and then doing a sprinting breath, but we don't have the mechanics of sprinting? If you want to breathe like Wim Hof, then go sprint, because you have to have the mechanics associated to the breath, or you can do a lot of damage with those breathing drills. Here's a little 5-minute circuit that you guys can do to rehydrate your tissues. And what I mean by that is not just about drinking water, but holding it in your body. Water has huge memory potential, so you need to spiral your body so that the water can gather up the trauma, so you can cry it out, sweat it out, piss it out, or bleed it out. But if you don't move in a new way, you won't gather up the trauma that's hidden inside your cells from the burn, from the breakup, from the dog, like I mentioned earlier. But when you start to move in a way that's not limiting you, you'll gather up the trauma via the spiral, and then you'll be able to cry it out, sweat it out, piss it out, or bleed it out. But first you have to gather it up, and the water will grab the memory of the trauma out of your cells and then send it out of you. That's why the reason we do biomechanics is so that you can hydrate your tissues in a new way. So workout is gonna look like this. 5 minutes of just spiraling your arms back and forth. That's palm up, palm down. The spiral of the hands and the spiral of the rib cage. And you just sit here, keeping your hips behind your rib cage, head nice and still, hips nice and still, and learn how to rotate your rib cage. The next thing you're gonna do is learn how to put your heart over your base. So that's gonna be my lead leg. And then I'm gonna do 2 to 5 minutes of just reciprocating, learning how my right hand and my left leg go together. And I just do this 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes on one leg, then I switch. I put my head and my heart over my base of support, and I do the same thing, 2 to 5 minutes. That's gonna greatly hydrate your tissues from the side. It's gonna look like this, and when the leg comes back, I'm gonna pull my heel to my butt. Boom, heel to my butt, heel to my butt. Rotating the torso, that's gonna greatly hydrate your tissues. So remember, 2 to 3 minutes on one side, 2 to 3 minutes on the other. The next thing is to learn how to put your hips behind your rib cage. Exhaust this tissue right here. The glutes stand for power. They're the largest muscle as far as mass goes, and if you're not walking with your glutes, you're not walking in your power. So learning how to hydrate the glutes. Shove your body back into your glutes. Hold this position 2 minutes on each side. Remember, if my right leg is forward, my left arm is forward. I'm gonna engage my whole body. Pull my belly button in, get my right tricep, get my left bicep, and then turn my heart towards its foundation here. Hold for 2 minutes. Then I switch sides. Right bicep, left leg. Get into that same position. Once you do that for 2 minutes on each side, then we go through the walking song. Every man should have the same song. It's what connects us. I'm gonna come to the bottom here, and I'm gonna go arms, then bring my ribs up, then my leg. Same thing on the way back down. Arms first, ribs second, legs third. Arms, ribs, leg, arms, ribs, leg. Do that on both sides for 2 to 5 minutes. Exhaust that glute. If you're doing this well, you should feel your power connecting to your foot. Remember, it's called the sole of the foot. And when you can connect your power to your soul, great things happen. The last thing is actually practicing this when you walk. You're gonna get your right foot forward, left foot back. If our right leg is forward, our left hand is forward. And you're just gonna practice throwing the arms, then the ribs, and then switching your legs. Looks like this. Arms, ribs, switch. Arms, ribs, switch. If you can add this into locomotion, it's gonna look like this. Arms, ribs, step. Arms, ribs, step. I can go backwards too. Arms, then my ribs, then I step. Arms, ribs, then I step. Always ending with reciprocation, right versus left. And then you start to just add your own little pattern to it. Arms swing, ribs rotate, it's gonna feel like you're being too pompous or too extravagant, and that's because you've probably been playing it small your whole life. Open up your heart, move the rib cage a little bit more, be seen, be a bigger man. If you're playing it small and caving your heart in and driving your genitals forward, no mantra in the world is gonna help you. But once you learn how to shove your hips, get the heart forward, and start rotating from the rib cage, magic will happen. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Remember, when it comes to the 7 sacred bodies, the first 3, physical, astral, and mental, they all glue to each other. Your body is the reflection of what's going on with the other 2. If you're holding a bunch of weight in your gut, if you're hunched over, if you're shifted, your body is your reflection. Don't run from it. Don't hide from diagnosing yourself. Work on the thing that Mother Nature gave you most. I hope to see you guys next year at Convergence. Thank you very much.